All right, so ready to dive into some California current events.
Always up for a deep dive.
Today we're tackling the top 5 stories from the Southern California Observer Group newspapers. And let me tell you, there's a lot to unpack.
Sounds intriguing. What's caught your eye?
Well, first up, ever compared salaries with a coworker,
Mm-hmm.
and things got a little awkward.
We've all been there.
Right. Now imagine that awkwardness playing out on a statewide level. This new California Civil Rights Department report really highlights the issue of unequal pay, showing that, shockingly, black workers in California are way more likely to be stuck in that lowest pay bracket. We're talking $32,239 or less annually. Crazy, right?
Yeah, and it's especially jarring considering California's reputation for, progressive policies. You'd think we'd be further along by now.
Exactly. So help me understand this. We have strong equal pay laws on the books, but this report paints a different picture. What's the disconnect?
It's complicated. Think of it like this. We have the laws, which is great, but enforcing them and addressing the systemic issues underneath, well, that's the tricky part.
Okay, so it's more than just legislation. It's about changing the system itself.
Precisely. We're talking unconscious bias in hiring, limited access to capital for minority-owned businesses, and even the gender pay gap. It all plays a role. And the impact of that gap isn't just about a single paycheck either. It's about a lifetime of lost earnings, savings, investments. It's a lot. And for black women in particular, the situation is even more concerning.
Because they're dealing with both racial and gender bias?
Exactly. There's a California Black Women's Collective report showing a really concerning trend. Fewer and fewer black women are even participating in the workforce.
Wow. So it's not just about equal pay, it's about equal access to opportunities from the get-go.
Exactly. And it's not just smaller companies either. Even those big tech giants are having to confront these issues. That recent $15 million settlement with Snapchat over discrimination and pay equity claims really underscores that point.
$15 million. Wow. Okay, so let's say you're an employer listening to this, or even just someone who wants to see things change.
Yeah.
What can we actually do about it?
Well, I think it starts with awareness. Employers need to ask themselves, are our hiring practices truly inclusive? Are we promoting diverse candidates? And for individuals, knowing your worth and negotiating fair compensation is key.
Don't be afraid to ask for what you deserve.
Exactly. It's about creating a culture of equity from top to bottom.
I love that. So, to our listeners out there, have you experienced these disparities in your own workplaces or communities? It's a conversation worth having.
Yeah.
But for now, let's shift gears from economics to politics. Our very own Kamala Harris is facing some heat, and it's not about her policies, but how her presidential campaign is spending its money.
You're talking about the concerns raised by black Democratic operatives and minority-owned businesses.
That's right. See, Harris ran on a platform of supporting black businesses, but now there are accusations that her campaign is actually favoring white-owned vendors instead.
And this is coming at a time when she's the first black and Southeast Asian woman leading a major party ticket, so it's a particularly sensitive issue.
Exactly. And it's not just about optics. This has the potential to damage her credibility among black voters, a demographic crucial for any Democrat hoping to win.
Absolutely. It raises serious questions about representation at all levels, not just at the top. For instance, the National Newspaper Publishers Association, which represents over 200 black-owned newspapers, secured a $1.5 million deal with the campaign. That might sound like a lot, but compared to the nearly $1 billion war chest...
It is a drop in the bucket.
Exactly. So is this a Harris-specific issue or a sign of a larger pattern within the Democratic Party? It's a conversation that's bound to continue throughout the election.
It'll be interesting to see how it unfolds. Now, all this talk of pay gaps and campaign controversies, it can feel a bit heavy, How about a quick roundup of some lighter news from the California Capitol?
A change of pace is always welcome. What do you have for us?
Well, get this. California just became the first state to formally apologize for its role in slavery.
It's a symbolic gesture, but an important one nonetheless.
Right. But it does make you wonder, what concrete actions will follow this apology? Words are just words unless they're backed up by real change.
Absolutely. Speaking of accountability, there's been a lot of talk about that massive fraud case involving charter schools.
Oh, yeah, that was a big one.
Well, the state controller just released a best practices report to prevent something like that from happening again, which is a good step.
Definitely. Transparency and oversight are crucial, especially when it comes to our kids' education.
Couldn't agree more.
And last but not least, Governor Newsom just signed Yahushua's Law. This one hits close to home because it mandates schools to implement those extreme weather protocols.
It's a direct response to that heartbreaking incident where a student died from heat stroke during PE. It's a stark reminder that climate change isn't some distant threat, it's impacting us here and now.
Absolutely. We need to be prepared. Okay, ready to tackle another hot button issue. Let's talk about something that always gets Californians fired up, rent control.
Oh boy, that's a topic that's sure to spark some debate.
You said it. So we've got Proposition 33 on the ballot, which aims to repeal something called Costa-Hawkins. Now, Costa-Hawkins basically handcuffs local governments when it comes to enacting rent control measures.
And it's been a point of contention for years.
Oh, absolutely. The group behind Prop 33, Justice for Renters, they're not mincing words. Their slogan is, the rent is too damn high.
Which, I mean, it resonates with a lot of people.
Right. But like most things, it's not so black and white.
Definitely not. You've got folks arguing that rent control is absolutely essential, particularly with nearly 30% of California renters struggling to make ends meet. They see it as a way to protect tenants and prevent them from being priced out of their homes.
Makes sense. But then there's the other side.
Who argue that rent control would actually backfire and make the housing crisis worse. Their argument is that it discourages new construction and could lead to even higher costs for existing units.
So it's a real catch-22. And to add fuel to the fire, guess who's weighed in on the debate? Kamala Harris.
Adding that national spotlight to a local issue, her endorsement of Prop 33 definitely shakes things up.
For sure. Well, before we dive too deep into California politics, let's switch gears to a story that's sending shockwaves across the country. This one's coming out of New York City, and it's a doozy.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Lay it on me.
So get this. New York City Mayor Eric Adams has been criminally indicted.
Wow, that's huge. I bet that's sending shockwaves through the city.
You can say that again. This is the first time a sitting mayor of New York City has faced criminal charges. It's a story that's making headlines nationwide, and for good reason.
Yeah, this isn't just some local scandal. These accusations against Adams are serious stuff. We're talking illegal campaign contributions, potentially even from, get this, individuals overseas?
Whoa, from overseas.
Yeah, sounds like a classic straw donor scheme to me, trying to skirt those pesky campaign finance laws.
Sneaky. So what are they saying exactly?
Well, on top of that whole overseas thing, they're saying that some businesses trying to dodge those city regulations on corporate donations, allegedly funnel donations through employees to kind of muddy the waters.
Trying to hide where the money's really coming from.
Exactly. Classic attempt to buy influence, undermine transparency, the whole 9 yards.
Shady stuff. But, I mean, Adams is denying everything, right?
Oh, 100%. He's singing a very different tune, calling the charges completely false, politically motivated, the whole shebang. Claims he's being targeted for, standing up to the little guy.
Right, that old chestnut.
Yep. But here's the thing. This indictment, it's not exactly coming out of left field. Remember those federal investigations from a few months back?
Oh, right. The feds were digging around, searching homes of some of Adams' top officials, even seized their phones, right?
You got it. And get this, they even took the police commissioner's phone.
No way.
Way. Plus, you've got those ongoing investigations into potential favors for certain businesses. It's not looking good.
Yeah, feels like the walls are closing in.
Yeah.
What happens now?
Well, the pressure is definitely on. There are already calls for his resignation, and not just from the opposition. Even some within his own party are turning on him.
Yeah, the New York Working Families Party basically said Adams has, and I quote, lost the trust of the everyday New Yorkers he was elected to serve.
Ouch. It's gotta hurt.
Yeah, talk about a vote of no confidence.
It really highlights how damaging these kinds of scandals can be, just erodes public trust. People deserve better, especially from those in power.
Absolutely. But it's important to remember, innocent until proven guilty, right?
Of course.
This legal battle is just getting started. Who knows how it'll all play out? But one thing's for sure, this could have major consequences, not just for Adams and his political future, but for the future of New York City itself.
It's a good reminder for everyone, especially those in positions of power. Transparency and accountability are crucial.
Speaking of which, remember our earlier chat about rent control in California?
How could I forget, right? Always a hot topic.
This debate surrounding Proposition 33, it's really heating up as we get closer to the election. And it's not just some abstract policy debate either. This is about real people's lives, their homes, their futures.
Exactly. It's about the real struggles Californians are facing every day. We're talking about those sky-high housing costs and an affordability crisis that just keeps getting worse.
Right, and it really highlights that fundamental tension between folks who want more government intervention in the housing market and those who think the free market holds all the answers.
Right. It's a microcosm of this larger national conversation we're having about the role of government, the balance of power between, renters and landlords, what we even mean when we say affordable housing.
And as we all know, what happens in California often doesn't stay in California, often has ripple effects across the country. Okay, but enough about politics and policies. How about something a little more, I don't know, uplifting for a change?
I'm all for a dose of optimism. What you got?
Well, Governor Newsom just launched this really cool environmental campaign encouraging Californians to make more sustainable choices in their daily lives.
Oh, yeah, the California Climate Action Corps campaign, right?
That's the one.
It's refreshing, honestly, to see a focus on, individual action and collective responsibility. It's not all doom and gloom.
Right. And it's about empowering people to make these small but meaningful changes.
Yeah.
Composting, choosing public transit over driving solo, planting trees. We can all do something.
Exactly. It's a good reminder that we're not helpless in the face of climate change. We all have a part to play in creating a better future.
And you know what else is empowering? Seeing young people get involved, demand action.
Oh, absolutely. Did you see that stat about pre-registered voters in California?
No, what's that?
Get this, over 1.2 million young Californians are ready to vote as soon as they turn 18.
Wow, that's a powerful force for change right there.
Right. This generation, they're inheriting a world grappling with, climate change, economic inequality, social injustice, the works, and they're not going to just sit back and watch it all unfold.
And they shouldn't have to. They've got every right to demand better from our leaders and help shape a future that aligns with their values.
Couldn't agree more.
And speaking of shaping the future, let's talk about another issue that directly impacts young people. Gun safety.
Well, Governor Newsom's been busy signing a ton of bills aimed at strengthening gun control measures. This is going to reignite that national debate on gun violence for sure.
Oh, yeah. California's always been at the forefront, pushing for progressive change, and this is no exception. And it's interesting to see how President Biden's recent executive order kind of dovetails with some of these new California laws.
What do you mean?
Well, he's focusing on things like, improving those active shooter drills in schools, addressing the threat of 3D printed firearms, that kind of thing.
Right. It really highlights how this issue of gun violence, it's multifaceted, and there's no one-size-fits-all solution. It's going to take a multi-pronged approach.
Absolutely. Okay, so we've talked about gun safety, but let's not overlook something that might not seem as urgent but is still a big deal. Plastic pollution.
Oh, right. The ultimate slow-burning crisis.
It feels so overwhelming, like what can we even do?
I hear you, but this week's news, it's a good reminder that we can hold those big corporations accountable.
You're talking about California's lawsuit against ExxonMobil, right?
Bingo. Accusing them of misleading the public about their recycling efforts for decades. Classic greenwashing.
All talk, no action. So the state's saying ExxonMobil knew their products were contributing to the plastic problem, but they downplay the environmental impact, and to top it off, they promoted a recycling program that wasn't nearly as effective as they claimed.
Yeah, and that kind of deceptive practice has real-world consequences. We're talking about a global plastic pollution crisis here. It's harming our oceans, our wildlife, even human health.
It's a wake-up call. We can't just recycle our way out of this one. We need systemic change. We need corporate accountability. We need to shift to more sustainable practices.
And it starts with consumers like us demanding transparency and holding these companies responsible. Remember, we vote with our wallets every single day.
So true. But what gives me hope? Seeing more young people become engaged in these issues, it's inspiring, isn't it? They're not shying away from these challenges. They're facing them head on.
Absolutely. And it actually makes me think about this past week's news in a different light. We covered some tough stuff, right? Those pay disparities, those political scandals, that never-ending housing crisis. It can feel kind of overwhelming.
Yeah, like you're drowning in bad news.
Exactly. But what if, and hear me out, what if instead of seeing California as just, a smaller version of America's problems, we saw it as like a testing ground for solutions?
Interesting. Tell me more.
Think about it. California, we've always been pushing the envelope, right? Innovation, taking risks, trying new things. It's in our blood.
We practically invented the next big thing.
Right. So when you hear about all these challenges facing California, whether it's environmental initiatives or political battles or these amazing social movements, think of them as experiments. Experiments in how to build a more just and equitable and sustainable society.
That's a really cool way to look at it. It's not about dwelling on what's wrong. It's about searching for how to make it right. It's about finding those glimmers of hope, even amidst all the chaos.
Exactly. And that's what I always come away with after these deep dives. A sense of, I don't know, informed optimism. Because, yeah, the challenges are huge, but there are incredible people out there working hard to solve them.
That's what keeps me going. And who knows, maybe some of these solutions we're testing out here in the Golden State, they'll light the way forward for the rest of the country, even the world.
That would be something.
That would be amazing. Well, folks, that brings us to the end of our California Current Events Deep Dive. I don't know about you, but I'm feeling energized. Energized to stay informed, to get involved, and to never stop asking the tough questions.
And remember, even small actions can make a big difference.
Couldn't have said it better myself. All right, everybody, go out there and be awesome, California. And to our amazing listeners, thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.